Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you 10 short books that you can read very fast, and I'm saying very fast because all of these books are not over 200 pages long each, and you can read each and every one of them in just within a span of 24 hours. Some of these are really fast paced that you can just finish them in a single sitting itself. I know that many people might be struggling with their Goodreads goals at this point inside the year, so I just want to put out some really short and quick book recommendations so that you can easily achieve that reading goal at the same time have a lot of fun while doing it. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first book that I'm recommending today is The Hidden Hindu Book 1 by Akshat Gupta, which is the first book inside an Indian sci-fi thriller trilogy. All the 3 books inside the trilogy are published right now, but I've read only the first book. But I'm sure that I'm going to finish this series because I enjoyed this first book so much. Here we follow our main character Prithvi from the near future, and the thing that Prithvi is doing right now is he's trying to find this Akori named Om Swami. And Om Swami is actually captured and kept guard inside this very high-tech facility in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The reason why he is kept in such a high-security facility is because he claims that he's an immortal and has lived through the Ramayana and Mahabharata and seen all those things happening in front of his eyes. According to the claims that he makes, he is not just the only immortal that is present and roaming around as mortals right now. There are also multiple immortals who are just roaming around the world. In order to see if what Om Swami is claiming is true or not, and if it is true, what are all the probabilities that it can give for humanity as a whole is the actual exploration of this book. It is super short and super fast paced too. It is kind of repetitive at instances, but trust me, it will just make you keep on flipping the pages continuously that you will finish reading the book just as quick as you start reading it. Next we have a contemporary book, but it is quite dark in its tone, and it is The Possession of Mr. Cave by Matt Haig. Just because it says possession doesn't mean that it is a horror story or something that has darkness in that aspect at all. It is a book which deals with the darkness that grows within a human being, that is our main character Terence Cave, because his son dies in a very bad accident in the beginning of the book, and his son also has a twin who's his daughter, and because of the things that he has experienced with his son, he becomes very much protective of his daughter, and he almost goes to the extent of just keeping her in house arrest, except for the time when she is allowed to go to school, not to just keep her safe. It goes to such a bad extent that he's not ready to share her life with anyone else at all, and he's just trying to control each and every aspect of his daughter's life. Now this book has some trigger warnings for depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, child abuse and a lot more, so if you're going to read this book, please do keep them in mind. Despite all those things, I'll say that this is a really good book to read because the exploration of grief for the main character is done really well by the author right here. It is put out in the most raw and dark form, and if you're a person who has read Matt Haig books already, I'm sure you know that he has a really nice writing style which is easy to read and digest. It's the same in this book also, but just keep in mind that it is a very dark book and it can depress you after you finish reading it. But again, it's quite short and just over 200 pages, so you can easily read it within a day. Next we have a literary fiction book, and it is The Uncoupling by Meg Wolitzer. And in this book, the author has actually taken a tale from Greek mythology, if I'm not wrong, of that of Lysistrata, and she has interwoven that story with the current life story that is happening inside the book. Here we just follow this small town in which there are so many people, and there's this particular thing that happens in the town during one winter when a spell just falls across the town, and because of this spell, all the women inside the town are just distancing themselves away from their male counterparts. It's just affecting the women alone and not anyone else inside the city, and because of this there are a lot of repercussions that happen. It is not like it is going to be there forever, it is going to happen for a brief amount of time, but the amount of problems that it creates just in that short time period itself is very intense. The author also makes a lot of social commentary while she is narrating the stories of different people inside the town to show us as examples for this spell and how it has been working through these people. If you ask me, there is not like a huge point of reading this book, but the way in which the spell falls on the city and the repercussions that it creates among the people is something which I think will be interesting for a lot of people to read. And again, it's a page turner. It will just make you keep on flipping the pages until you reach the end. And if you like Greek mythology yourself, it will be an additional reason to just go forward and pick this one. Next we have a Japanese translated book, and it is The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. Now in this book we follow our main character, who's a very young boy who's just in middle school, and the thing about this boy is that he has lost both his parents, so he has been brought up by his grandfather, and one day out of nowhere his grandfather also dies, and after that he's to be taken out of this town where he has lived in and he's to be brought up by his aunt. Now there is this small amount of time between which he is in charge of the bookstore that his grandfather used to own and the time during which he is going to be taken away by his aunt. And during that time, he has to clear off all the books that are available right there so that he could have some money while he is leaving the place. And during that time only, there is this small ginger cat which comes and tries to start a conversation with him. And the cat actually talks with the boy. After it talks with him, there's this small kind of portal which opens, through which both the boy and the cat travel to 3 different places, and they have to finish 3 different stories that are happening continuously in some kind of time loop. And by completing these 3 stories, the boy might end up saving the lives of all the books across the world. It is kind of fascinating to see how the author has incorporated certain aspects of science and magical realism together in the story, and the talking cat inside the story is also such a spunky character. If you're someone who's into reading magical realism books, you need to try this one. Next, we have one of my all-time favorite short story collections, which I read last year. And ever since I read this book, I have been gobbling up the books by this author and I'm loving each and every one of them, especially for her writing style. And the book is Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I've read only 3 books by this author so far, and 2 of the 3 that I've read are 5-star reads for me. And this was the first book that I read by her, which is also a Pulitzer Prize winner. This is a collection of 10 short stories that just talk about really mundane everyday things that happen in the lives of 10 different people or 10 different families, I need to say, and how the author just narrates them to us. The best part about this book, more than anything if you ask me, is the writing of the author. There's nothing special about each and every one of the 10 stories in this one, but the way in which the author just makes you see those stories through her writing is just brilliant if you ask me. There are also certain stories which make you think about the moral aspects of life and what is right and what is wrong, and there is a lot of grey area in between right and wrong which we all go through on a very daily basis. But just as I said before, all of those things are just in a second seat for me, and the first one which just draws me towards this book each and every time is its writing. The author will make you see the place and live in the place where the story is taking place, and you'll feel like you are just there along with those characters, seeing the story unfold in front of your eyes. Her writing is that beautiful and that easy, so you just need to try this book. Next, we have a children's classic, and it is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. And I just read this book a couple of months back, and trust me, it was really beautiful in its tone. And it also made me think a lot of things while I was reading this book, because it is about this horse named Black Beauty who's born in a farm and he's grown up for some time inside that farm, after which he has to be moved on to the houses of different people, and each and every one of these different people have different kinds of jobs for the horse. There are some people who treat the horse really beautifully and properly that it just feels so happy, and there are multiple instances in which the horse is also being abused. It is actually just a clear picture showing us how we treat animals and things that are not human beings, that is us, in a very bad way. We are trained to see that anything that we do wrong for a human being is wrong, but for any other person or any other creature, it's not that much to a great extent considered to be a crime. And it just shows us how these magnificent creatures, horses which are so much more powerful than us, are being abused by us human beings, especially during the olden times before animal rights laws have been created. It was such a heartwarming read which also made my eyes well up at a lot of instances. So if you want something sweet and just very innocent in its tone, you need to try this one. Next, we have Almond by Sohn Won-Pyung, which is a YA/middle grade contemporary book. And here we follow our main character, who's this boy that you see on the cover. And because of some things that have happened in his brain, he's not able to function as normal human beings do inside the society. And because of this, he's being taken extra care of by his mother and grandmother. But in the beginning of the story, what happens is, due to some reasons, both his mother and grandmother die in a very crazy accident, and he witnesses it in front of his eyes. Now, a person like him usually requires a lot more care to be taken off compared to normal children, and how he is going to take care of himself after losing the only 2 people he has known for his entire life, and also take care of himself in order to understand people who are around him better and make the world also understand him better, is the actual plot of this book. It is very heartwarming, at the same time sad at multiple instances. While you're reading this book, you'll be able to understand and be grateful for all the normal abilities that you have as a human being, because I felt that while I was reading this book, because each and every one of us who are human beings deserve some physical abilities which some people are not endowed with for some reason. by nature and how unjust it is for those people, and more than that, how unjust it is from our side for not understanding them better. It's quite an intense read, even though it is very, very short. I listened to the audiobook of this one and it did not even take me 3 hours to finish it. But trust me, if you read this book for the small amount of time that you spent inside it, it'll make you think so much more. Next, we have 2 books from Hindu mythology or Indian mythology. And the 2 books that I want to talk about are from the same series also by Koral and Dasgupta, which are Ahalya and Kunti, which are the first 2 books inside the Sati series. There are totally 5 books inside the series, of which 4 have been published already. I've read only these 2 and I'm definitely going to continue on with this series because the writing of the author in both of these books is really, really nice. And personally for me, I liked Kunti a lot more compared to Ahalya because I knew the stories of both Kunti as well as Ahalya before I read the books itself. But the perspective or the angle from which Koral Dasgupta narrates the stories of both Ahalya and Kunti for us in this one is really, really beautiful. Okay, she actually tells their stories from their own point of view. So to start with Ahalya, which is the first book inside the series, we see how Ahalya is just born from the consciousness of a god, and there are multiple situations in which she is just thrust into, and how she is going to make sense of her life on earth, how she is going to make sense of humanity as a whole, how she is going to try and make them make sense of her, and how certain misunderstandings and deeds lead to her being cursed for some reason, and how that curse is going to be broken, and once that is broken, how she gets the vision of 4 other women who are going to occur in the further generations inside the Hindu mythology lore, and how these 5 women together along with Ahalya will be called the Panchasati is explained to us and shown to us beautifully in this first book. This is quite sad in its tone compared to Kunti, but Kunti is so much more powerful in its tone. So just like for Ahalya, for Kunti also we get the story from her own point of view. And while reading the book, I was just able to see and understand what kind of a brilliant and intelligent woman Kunti was, and how much passion she had for politics, science, astronomy, geography, and a lot more other stuff. The way in which she gives birth to her children, raises them up, and the relationship that she has with her husband, with Indra, with her father, with her brother, and each and every other character in her life, and also the second wife of her husband. All those things were really properly and beautifully portrayed by the author in this book. That's why I said that I liked Kunti as a book much more compared to Ahalya. And the author itself says in the first book that of all the 5 books, there are 2 books which are going to be much more important compared to the other 3 books inside the series. And those are the 2 books which involve Kunti and Draupadi, because both of their lives almost happened during the same time during the Hindu mythology timeline. So obviously the 3rd book after Kunti is Draupadi. I have not read the next 3 books which are Draupadi, Mandodari and Tara, but I'm definitely going to continue on with the series. And you can see that the books are quite short, right? They are not just short in height, they are also very small when it comes to the page count. You can literally finish each and every one of these books in under 2 hours. And trust me, the stories of these women told from their own points of view will be super fascinating. And at last, I have only one non-fiction book for this video, and it's also a very, very tiny book. And that is a book about books itself, which is The Clothing of Books by Jhumpa Lahiri again. The reason why I'm adding this book at last in this list is because the author talks about book covers inside this book. So it's not just a book about books, it's a book about book covers and the point of view and opinions of an author who writes the books and does not have that much of a liberty to decide what kind of cover the book that contains their own written story can have. She talks about a lot of things and also shows us how much it can mean for us readers for the books to have certain type of book covers and not others, and how different editions of the book, for example translated editions, will have different covers depending upon the geography where the book is going to be published in and the language that it is translated into. It is literally just over 80 pages long, and again it's a very tiny book, you can see, right? You can easily finish reading this in just like 1 or 1.5 hours, and there are so many quotable lines inside this book. You can see it is very tiny, right? But I have added a number of tabs within the small amount of pages that it has itself because it has such beautiful writing. If you have watched this video until this point, I'm sure that you are a book lover and I think you deserve to read this one. So yes guys, those are all the 10 short books which I wanted to recommend today so that you can easily achieve your Goodreads goals and also have a lot of fun while doing that. If you have any other such short reads, please do let me know down in the comments below so that I can read them and also it can benefit other people who are looking out for such reads. And if you found this video useful and enjoyable in some way, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.